Welcome to Dialogues for Change. Life is not a void to be filled. It is a plenitude to be discovered. Today, I would like to share with you some insights taken from the introduction to a book that I coordinated on law, land use and the environment, Afro-Indian dialogues. The book is the outcome of a conference I organized in Pondicherry, in the south of India, where I wanted to enhance some south-south dialogues between Africa and India on the questions of land law and natural resources management. The questions of land use and of the environment plunge us into the heart of human life. They invite us to reflect upon the ways that human beings construct their relationship to the environment, how they adapt to its constraints, how they shape it. However, this interaction is not only that of a subject, man, and of an object, nature. Nor is it the action of the former and the latter, as a Cartesian reading could suggest, in which man appears essentially as the one who has to subjugate nature through his will. A will to which the latter shows resistance through its inertia. Without entering into deep ecology considerations, and without adhering to the Gaia theory of a living earth that is animated by a soul and is therefore also a subject, and maintaining the anthropocentric vision that characterizes social sciences rooted in Western modernity, it becomes increasingly clear that the action of man on his environment is mediated by his representations, by the way he envisages his place and his role in the world, and by both his relationship to the world and the relationships he establishes with his fellow human beings. The question of land use and of natural resources management, la question foncière, arises because we are not Robinson Crusoes who live solitarily on our island, but human beings who have to share spaces for living as well as the resources they contain. Etienne Leroy, who sees law as deeply fashioned by our imaginations and who considers that the relationship to land, the rapport foncier, is an imagined relationship between human beings concerning a space that only exists according to the conventions inscribed in systems of ideas before being materialized in social space, proposes a definition that sums up the elements mentioned. For him, I quote, "Land use and natural resources management, le foncier, is the particular set of social relationships whose support is land or territorial space. These social relationships are principally determined by economic factors, primitive accumulation of capital and extraction of income, legal factors, norms of appropriation and modalities for conflict resolution, and by techniques of land development and planning that materialize and characterize these social relationships in distinct regimes." He adds, and this remark is fundamental in the context of contemporary research, that more substantially, it is politics that influence the way in which the question of land use and natural resources management is posed and approached. The sensitivity of land law and natural resources management is increased by the competition or the contradiction of the choices made at the international, national, and local levels. An additional element has been added over the last 10 years to the analysis above. After having mainly considered the land security of the human actors, studies on land use and natural resources management have progressively opened up to more ecological considerations, integrating environmental issues into their analysis. It appears less and less satisfying to think about the environment only in terms of its exploitation by man, and by preoccupying oneself mainly with the organization of use and management systems aimed at securing the stakeholders. World demography is exerting a heretofore unknown pressure on the planet, and our contemporary lifestyles have a tremendous and often irreversible impact on nature. Little by little, we understand that the environment is not just a space surrounding us that we can exploit as we want. It is the environment in which we are inscribed. We have the responsibility to preserve it, if only to ensure survival and that of our children. We have to move towards a juste milieu, a right environment and a middle path. an approach that makes it possible to reconcile human needs with the safeguarding of our planet and its ecosystems. This new awareness is reflected on the level of political, economic and legal action. The increasing space occupied by sustainable development in the discourses and institutional bodies on international, national and local levels bears witness to this. On the one hand, sustainable development is supposed to balance the economic, social and environmental pillars. On the other hand, it should permit present generations to meet their needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet theirs, according to the Brundtland-Report's well-known formula. Let us now see land use, natural resources management and the environment in the context of the globalization of governance and sustainable development. The increasing consideration given to the environment that makes it necessary to combine different perspectives, to go beyond the borders of different disciplinary approaches, and to move towards more holistic approaches, is inscribed in the context of an important modification of our political, legal, economic, and scientific representations that also lend greater complexity to our modern games. We find ourselves in a paradigmatic transition in which the forms of organization, perception of the world inherited from modernity are partially challenged and complemented by new approaches. Consequently, the segmentation and compartmentalization that are characteristic of the modern scientific approaches, as well as our modern ways of envisaging the political, the economic and the legal, are being questioned. In science, the belief in a radical separation between the observer and the observed does not hold anymore, and the importance of re-inscribing both in an integral whole is recognized. As to the management of our societies, it seems less and less realistic to separate the economic, social and environmental fields, as the concept of sustainable development illustrates. Reality is complex, and in order to meet the challenges it presents to us, one must open up to interdisciplinarity, to intersectorality, to approaches that permit the participation of all stakeholders. The crossing of points of views and an articulation of needs, logics and issues that may seem to be incompatible a priori. This evolution emancipates us from the grand partage, the big divisions of modernity described by Bruno Latour, between them and us, between humans and non-humans, that can be further divided in multiple ways, between science and politics, between laymen and experts, between administrators and those who are administered, between administrators of people, politicians, and administrators of things, scientists. At the political legal level, this transition from the simple, the pure, the segmented, to the complex and the hybrid is manifested as a passage from the classical forms of government to new forms of governance, which echoes the transition observed in law that some authors have analyzed in terms of a possible transition from the pyramid to the network, and which could be the necessary passage to a dialogical democracy. However, if governance and sustainable development have become key terms in the semantic field such as it is reshaped in the era of globalization, and if they often appear as two sides of the same reality that should be promoted in the interest of the survival of our species and of our planet, it is important not to get lost in ideological approaches that are disconnected from field realities. Such approaches may not only turn out to be ineffective, but even highly counterproductive, to the point that they may lead to real human and natural catastrophes. Further, the stakes are all the more crucial, not only because the fuzziness of these terms gives them an appearance of universality, but because they are used as much as scientific concepts as ideological slogans. It is therefore essential to foster the grand theoretical debates on the shaping of our present and of our future through case studies that illustrate and thus permit us to understand the mechanisms and processes that are involved. Drawing attention to diverse fields and problematiques at more or less global or local levels also highlights the issues involved in the translation from one scale to the other, from one world to another, from one domain of action to another. The recognition of this issue of translation contributes on a deeper level to raise awareness to the importance of intercultural dialogue around the questions of governance and sustainable development. If you find these little insights or invitations to further thought interesting, you may enjoy this little book, which bring together quite some contributions from India and Africa on the questions of how to organize our living together, not only between humans, but also with our environment. I hope that these thoughts inspire you on this Thursday, 28th of June, 2012. Thank you.